Back here on CBS Sports HQ, college football was just absolutely going crazy last week, so we were expecting a bit of a shakeup in the new CFP bracket. 3 teams in the previous bracket cycled out of the field after being upset, including Ole Miss and Bama, and it cleared the way for SMU to get in there as the projected 9 seed. Tennessee climbing back into the field. We have Ohio State, Penn State, Notre Dame, and Georgia projected to host some first-round matchups. Indiana also stayed in as an 11 seed. More on that in a moment. But Arizona State, welcome to the bracket. They surpassed BYU as the projected 12 seed after beating the Cougars 28-23 on their home field last weekend. As the 12 seed, they would face Ohio State in the first round if everything remains the same. The Big 12, you know, it is crazy. The Sun Devils and a 4-way tie for first place in the Big 12 with 2 losses. Let's go over to Indiana, coming off of a blowout loss to Ohio State at the Shoe, and there was a lot of conversation if they would still be in the playoff picture, if they lost by a lot, what happened if they won, what would that look like? Well, they are still in the CFP picture for now. Shout out to some SEC teams who lost on the road in those rankings. Indiana is still in it, projected as an 11 seed. So getting a look at the current rankings there, Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame, all still in there. Top 5 when it comes to the rankings. By the way, Notre Dame, USC, you can watch that one on CBS this weekend. But we have some new teams climbing into the bracket because Ole Miss and Bama, just some of the teams that completely shocked us. Let's welcome in Brandon Marcello to talk about it. And we're starting off with Indiana, no longer undefeated. They have 1 loss thanks to the Buckeyes, but they are still in that playoff picture, according to the committee. Was that the right move, Brandon, despite the blowout loss at Ohio State?
Yeah, I think so. I can't imagine dropping them below 12 or let alone maybe out of the top 10. I actually kind of thought they might be at 9 or maybe even 8, but 10's a good spot for them. I think they're safely in the playoff field at this point. And Ward Manuel, the committee chairman, said as much pretty much last night, talking about how they've had 3 impressive wins on their resume, and of course the loss to Ohio State at this point. But as long as Ohio State keeps winning, and if they win this weekend against Michigan, I think that's going to put Indiana in the playoff at this point. And part of that's also because the SEC looks like it's going to be a 3-bid league at this moment, and that provides some room there for the Big Ten to end up putting 4 teams in.
Yeah, the SEC, we've heard 3 to 5, and now it's back to 3 after the week we saw over last weekend. Let's talk about Bama and then also Clemson, because as of right now, they're kind of on the outside looking in. Clemson kind of still in it in terms of the ACC title, and then Bama, as we talked about, a tough loss to Oklahoma, barely scoring any points. What is the path, if there is any, Brandon, for Clemson and Bama to get in, or either one of them?
Well, Clemson's in a much better position, in my opinion, because, one, they're a 2-loss team, and also they end the regular season against a ranked opponent against South Carolina. Alabama's playing a sub-500 team in Auburn, and they're playing that game in Tuscaloosa. So Clemson, to me, they've got to make the ACC championship game potentially. I still think the ACC is a 2-bid league, and those 2 bids will end up going to the champion, obviously, and I think the runner-up. So if you're Clemson, you got to win this weekend, in my opinion, and you probably got to hope that Syracuse knocks off Miami this week, which isn't completely out of the realm of possibility. Syracuse playing very well throughout the season, and Miami has to go to Syracuse. I think that's their best path in. I think they can't just do it alone. They need some help. They need Miami to fall and also put Clemson in the ACC championship game.
So as of right now, Clemson has a 29% chance to get into the CFP. But what about Bama? I know you said, obviously, Clemson, they're in a lot better of a situation. But is there a path for Bama to still get in?
Yeah, I mean, they need teams to lose ahead of them. I would even say maybe they even need Indiana to lose this week against Purdue, which is probably not going to happen. But I think we're falling a little bit too much in love with logos right now. Everybody keeps asking about, is Alabama worthy of being in the playoff? But when the committee looks at everything, listen, they not just lost Oklahoma, they were blown out to Oklahoma, and they did so against an unranked team that is below 500 and has been struggling all season. And also, I think the committee is going to weigh recent success quite a bit when they're thinking about putting one of these teams in as the 12 seed or whatever at the bottom of the bracket. Because much like the men's basketball tournament has done in the past, they look at like the last 10 games, for example, there. So why isn't the committee looking at maybe the last 3 or 4 games? And when you do that, you're looking at like a Clemson or maybe even a South Carolina. And those 2 teams obviously play each other this week. I think those teams are much more worthy than, say, an Alabama or an Ole Miss to be in the playoff because of how they're performing lately, especially South Carolina. South Carolina's won 5 straight games, including 2 against ranked opponents. And if they beat Clemson on the road this week, why shouldn't they jump those other teams and be a playoff contender and maybe be that 4th team instead of an Alabama or maybe an Ole Miss?
Yeah, what a plot twist there. If we look back, all the way, and it ends up being South Carolina in the CFP and Bama is out. Not only is the SEC been kind of crazy, but the Big 12 has been crazy really all season long. I think the scenarios, Brandon, it's what, like 256 or something different scenarios that can play out. 9 teams that are still alive. So we have another hypothetical for you. So if there is a 3-loss Big 12 champion, is a Tulane more deserving or better than that 3-loss Big 12 champion, in your opinion, if it comes down to that?
I don't think so, but there is a slim possibility that the committee would rank Tulane ahead of a 3-loss champion in the Big 12. Why do I think that? Well, just look at the rankings they released Tuesday night. Tulane is sandwiched between Arizona State and Iowa State. Tulane at 17, Arizona State at 16. Now, here's the thing to consider. Colorado is 25th in these rankings. Colorado's still in the hunt. Colorado has 3 losses. What if they somehow get in the Big 12 championship game, then win it, but win it against one of those lower tier teams that maybe not even ranked at this moment, and you look at a Tulane and go, they were already ahead of them in the rankings. Why shouldn't they remain ahead of a Big 12 champion Colorado? That's an interesting scenario. And if that happens, we're not just talking about the Big 12 missing out on a first-round bye. We're talking about the Big 12 missing out on the entire college football playoff and not putting a team in there. Again, a very long stretch and hypothetical there, but it is possible if you just look at the rankings and the way they stretched out this week, and the Big 12 hurting itself by beating up itself, but also the tiebreaker scenarios there. You got to figure something out to make it a little bit more clear cut. To have 9 teams in the running in the final week of the regular season, ludicrous.
Yeah, when I heard 256 possible scenarios and we're like, 2 weeks left of college football, if that, it's absolutely wild. Brandon, we certainly appreciated the Big 12 giving us parity. That's what they said all the way from the beginning, talking about the CFP, something we are certainly looking forward to after the latest bracket reveal. Thanks, Brandon. We appreciate it.
Coming up, the Jeweled Shillelagh is on the line for number 5 Notre Dame versus USC. Our Jenny Dell sat down with head coach for the Irish, Riley Leonard, to discuss that game and more. Keep it locked right here on CBS Sports HQ.